Good afternoon, I'm Samantha Vanderbeek and you're watching Eye on Sheridan. Today we'll cover the latest international and local stories, as well as sports and entertainment news. Stephen Harper says the death of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi means he will never be able to terrorize his own people in the world again. The Prime Minister called Gaddafi's death the beginning of the end of Canada's military mission in Libya. His death ended the 42-year totalitarian control of Libya by the man once hailed as the King of Kings of Africa. Canada recently gave Libya's new provisional government, the National Transitional Council, an additional $10 million to clean up weapons of mass destruction and help the country make the transition to democracy. Canadian fighter jets flew 10% of NATO's sorties on Libya in support of the rebels who toppled Gaddafi's regime in August, and to protect innocent civilians from forces loyal to the dictator. Air Canada flight attendants plan to rally Friday on Parliament Hill defending workers' rights to free collective bargaining and launch strikes. The Canadian Union of Public Employees has invited other unions to join its protest that begins at noon. It says that Harper government is not showing the airline's 6,800 flight attendants any respect by threatening back-to-work legislation. The government also blocked a legal strike by referring to the case to the Canadian Industrial Regulations Board. The rally follows a series of protests that have taken place across the country. A new outlook for the Conference Board says Canada may avoid a recession next year, but it won't be pumping out strong growth and jobs. The Ottawa-based think tank says Canada will be weighed down by the subpar growth in the U.S. and the ongoing European debt crisis. Canada's economy is expected to grow by only 2.1% this year, with next year coming in a little stronger at 2.4% thanks to high global commodity prices. The Conference Board was among the most gloomy of forecasters earlier this year, and its predictions were mostly born out of the global events. The think tank says the U.S. will also likely avoid a recession because the firms are flush with cash. Commercial lending is growing, and again, industrial and export activity is on the rise. But it cautions its no slump prediction is based on expectations that European and U.S. policymakers will implement pro-expansion policies. It's day 4 of the Occupy Toronto protests, and there are no signs the movement is dwindling. 2 smaller protests took place on Wednesday. However, numbers are expected to grow on Friday's march. A few protesters split off from the main group and headed to the financial district on Wednesday, and a few dozen others made their way into the intersection of Yonge and Dundas in the evening. Members of the Occupy Toronto group will take the streets on Friday and march of solidarity with the First Nations group. It's a big night for hockey in Canada. All 7 Canada's NHL teams are playing tonight. The Winnipeg Jets continue their tour of Ontario with a game against the Senators. The Canucks host the stumbling Nashville Predators. Also, red-hot Phil Kessel and Maple Leafs are in Boston. Montreal visits Pittsburgh, and Flames host the New York Rangers, and the Minnesota Wild are in Edmonton against the Oilers. And in entertainment news, a Canadian artist shows that it's never too late to make a comeback. Everything old is new again for Leonard Cohen. A representative from Cohen's labels confirmed that the 77-year-old will release his new album entitled Old Ideas. While rumors circulating online have indicated the album could be out early in 2012, Sony says there is no official release date yet, and it will mark the first new album from the legendary Montreal crooner since 2004's Dear Heather. That album opened at #1 on the Canadian charts upon its release 7 years ago. Cohen has kept a relatively low profile this year, completing the extensive world tour in 2010, which kept the singer-songwriter on the road from July through December. And that's what's happening for this hour. Thanks for joining me. I'm Samantha Vanderbeek.